What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Drinks and Dogs. This is episode 38.
38.
There we go. For all of our Spanish speaking listeners here, Kitty has to clarify the number. um, what is up, brother? How are you doing?
Oh man, another day in paradise, man. Another
I mean,
day in paradise. Got my
te-
cappuccino.
technically, do people call like Florida paradise? Because like like everyone's like when you live by the beach or you live in like in a coastal area, they're like, oh, it must be nice living in paradise or whatever like that. Or like people say that about California. I'm like, bro, I live in the woods. I mean, it is paradise, but still,
It's, a lot of people say it about Florida. I've lived in Florida since, geez, like 2003. I moved to the Tampa
damn.
Bay area in 2005. So I've been in this region of Florida since 2005. I've lived in the city of Tampa. I've lived all throughout Hillsborough County. Now I live about an hour north of Tampa. When I was younger and I was shirtless at the beach every day.
Gym tan laundry, KD.
Dude, I was living that Florida, in my late 20s and 30s. Like I was maximizing what Florida had to offer. Now I'm the guy who wears long sleeves and a big old hat and covers up everything, and I hate the beach and I'm sick of the heat. And I'm one of the only like New Yorkers that I've met, or Northerners that I've met, who misses it. Like everyone else is like, I'd never go back. And I'm like, outside of some other reasons that we're not gonna get into on this show, I won't ever own property in the state of New York. But I miss the climate. Like I miss winter. I miss fall. That's why I'm so looking forward to our upcoming trial,
Yeah.
because it's like I get to go, because it's in my backyard. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm very familiar with where Tom is, and that's my old stomping grounds, man. I was born and raised there. And for me, this will be the first fall that I have seen, dude, in like 20 years.
Oh shoot. Did you go out? For some
Holy
reason
shit, 20 years.
I thought you went to Bob's around
Yeah,
that time last year, right? Or no,
yeah.
he's not over there though.
He's out in Western New York, but that's summertime. I've been to New York
Oh, okay.
in the summer, which is still beautiful. I mean, I used to
Yeah.
go back every summer, but I haven't seen a fall. Like I haven't been back for like September, October. And in New York, September and October are very different than
Oh,
every other month of the year. The leaves start changing, and man, if you're an outdoors person, now to me that's paradise. That's
yeah.
paradise. Zero humidity, light breeze, 60 some degrees. It's just maybe in the high 50s, which I don't mind.
Yeah.
It's just gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous. So I'm very excited about our first East Coast trial, because I get to see fall.
That'd be pretty cool. You know who just is not aware of where Tom lives geographically or where this next trial is? That's gonna be me, as you pointed out via text message. I thought so. For some of you guys who don't know what we're talking about, White Katie's laughing at me. We do this. We're starting this another Canine Street League thing called Canine SL Live, and I recently had Matt Rogers, Canine Matt, on Instagram, who's
Great episode, by the way. Great episode.
and then freaking so we're talking about it, and Matt goes, yeah, he's like, you guys are gonna be out here in Buffalo or something like that doing like the trial, and like me not knowing where the hell anything is in New York, right? I was like, oh, he's from the East Coast, he must know exactly what he's talking about, like where he's at. And I was like, yeah, for sure, we're gonna be there. Then Katie, I think you text me like, we're gonna go in Buffalo, like Tom's is like hours away. I was like, well, that's my or something. I forgot what I responded, and I was like, well, I'm just geographically like retarded or something like that. Like, I don't know where
Yeah,
the
it's
spot
to
is.
clarify, it's not in Buffalo, people. It's not, it's going to be 5 hours uh east of that in the greater capital district area of Albany.
That would be like someone going to like Los Angeles and saying they're going to come see me or something like that because it's the same difference in time.
Yeah, pretty big. That was a great episode. That I listened to that the other day. I was on my way home from a birthday party, and I said, I saw that was up. I heard you'd gotten Matt on the, and I've been, you and I have talked. Like I've been wanting to get Matt on one of these shows forever.
Yeah.
So when I saw that you did, I was like, oh, pop that on the phone. I'm driving and listening to him ripping on me. And it was a great show, though. It was a really good show.
We got to get them on Drinks and Dogs now. And freaking once I can get this, I have this whole new setup I want to start doing with Canon SL Live now that I've kind of experimented with it. But there's some stuff that I think, well, they'll be really funny to have you and Matt on there since you're like what he said. He's like you're his separated, what, seventh generation separated uncle.
Estranged uncle 3 times removed. Yeah,
Yeah.
Matt's a really cool dude. Like, as much crap, legitimate crap, that I have to say about the internet as a whole and how it's absolutely destroying humanity. It is. I mean, we're not going to go down that rabbit hole, but anyone who wants to debate that, like, go go for it. I'll win. Um, the cool part of it is, dude, the people I have met because of not just the internet, but social media, in
Yeah.
particular Instagram. That's why I'm a very big Instagram guy. Like Facebook is an evil necessity, but like y'all know, I love Instagram. Dude, I met you. I met
Yep.
you because of Instagram.
Yep.
Um, Matt and I had just kind of interacted the same way. I shared some of his stuff and we just kind of started exchanging stuff, commentary here and there. Next thing you know, we've talked on the phone a couple times. Um, he's been very supportive of what I do, very supportive. Um, and
100%.
as I am of what he does. And I was traveling up north for another one of my summer trips a couple years ago, and I hit him up. I'm like, dude, I'm coming through. Where you at? And he was training. And I went and observed and hung out at his training club for a little bit. And then afterwards, we went out and broke bread for a little bit. I think we went to like an Applebee's, and like just him and I. And within an hour, I'm like, oh, dude, like, when are we going to do this again? Like, he was pressed
Nice.
for time. I had to get to a client's house. And I'm like, this isn't like, we gotta chill, man. He is a cool human being. I like that guy a lot. I got a lot of respect for that guy.
Yeah, most definitely. Super. I mean, and it's cool. I mean, I like talking to people like, who are just like, just very transparent and honest and like just very clear of who they are. Not even just the fact that, that Matt, obviously is an extremely like intelligent dog man and a stand-up dude, but like just when you talk to somebody, it's not a facade. It's not like, being, fake or like me and Kitty, I both know, especially with social media and like and sometimes with our platforms, people can be a little funny, very smiley to your face and then behind your back do certain things or act a certain way. But the one thing I've really respected about Matt, besides like obviously his training skills and all the stuff that they possess, that was just like him as a person. The conversations I've had with him online and the just text messages and even some of the short ones we've had on the phone, and even the Canon SL Live thing, was very straightforward, very very just real in that sense. So I was like, I thought when we were when we were talking, I'm like, oh man, I got to have you on. We'll do a late night version of Drinks and Dogs. So Matt can pull out the Hennessy, and we can we can have all three of us on that one. But that was really cool. So shout out to Matt Rogers and that whole crew out there. They're all trialing this. I'm not sure when this episode's going to come out, but this weekend they're all trialing for the APPDA,
Mhm.
which I learned a little more about on that show, and it was really cool to hear because I mean it sounds like kind of very similar goals
Yeah.
in dogs that we have with Street League.
Yep. I think something that's worth mentioning is here we are. We're talking about Matt, and as much as I want to break, I want to break his balls because he broke mine so hard in the last show. We just spent the last 5 minutes being very complimentary to him. So Matt, I'll get you back sooner or later. Um, but there's something to that that's worth talking about, and that is, folks who watch the show, who are watching this episode, especially if they're a dog trainer or they're a competitive handler, if they're involved in our culture, it's a known thing. It's very commonly complained about that it's, all there's a lot of shady characters in the world of dogs. And I'm like, there's shady characters everywhere.
Yep.
It is what it is. But, in the world of dogs, there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of bad stuff. There's a lot of bad people. There's a lot of shady people. There's a lot of weak, insecure people with crazy alternative agendas and blah, blah, blah. When you're I I don't have to deal with that anymore. Meaning, like, I don't typically have undesirable encounters, undesirable relationships or toxic stuff in the dog world. And the reason why, and this is why I'm saying this, to maybe someone can reflect on this and think about it, is you're going to meet people through this common activity. Okay. You show up to a club, to a trial, whatever, seminars, you meet people, and obviously you got dogs in common. The key to avoiding the bullshit is not associating with people who dogs is the only thing you have in common.
Yeah.
And when bringing up talking about Matt, it instantly, I'm thinking about when I actually got to sit and hang out with him. And within 30 minutes, him and I were talking about some pretty deep shit. Like, it got deep fast, like real fast. And we were
That's what
both
she said.
comfortable. Yeah. Yeah, I'm proud of you there, buddy. Um, and we were both cool with it, and we went down some rabbit holes. And you know what? None of it had to do with dogs. We did not talk about dogs at all. We talked about some heavy life stuff and some shared personal experiences and learned about one another. He learned a lot about me because, like, my past, you wouldn't necessarily know places I've been. You wouldn't, by looking at me now and stereotyping me, you'd have no idea of my background. None. And, we unpacked some of that and we realized we had a lot of overlap. Something I learned from one of my mentors, Justin Garcia, when talking about alliances and friendships and the concept of tribe, there's overlap and there's offset. Offset is the stuff that, you don't have in common. It might even be antagonistic. Overlap, obviously, is the opposite. Things you have in common. Well, we found out we had a lot of overlap that had nothing to do with dogs. And folks, like, that's how you navigate life. And if we're, we can compartmentalize it right now and just talk about life in the world of dogs. Who are you hanging out with? Who are you talking to? Who are you associating with? And if you didn't have a dog or you weren't into dogs, would you still hang out with them? Would you still associate with them? Are they the kind of human being that you would be around? And that's huge. It's
Yep.
great to have this overlap thing that brings you into contact with people, but think of it as it's merely a gateway. It's merely an opportunity to shake hands and meet. Now, once that meeting is done, you're not obligated to be friends with anybody. Like, it's a shame I have to say that, but I mean, I think I do. If you surround yourself by people that in the dog world who you would still hang out with if you didn't have dogs and dogs was not a part of it, well, it'll take a more natural course. Like, I would hang out with Matt anytime, dogs or no dogs. And that's so key because it keeps you from getting burnt. Now, you might have some issues with that. Some people have issues with setting boundaries and picking appropriate friends to begin with. Well, those people are screwed to begin. Like, you got to fix that machine first. But realizing that it's more than dogs. And if you wouldn't hang out with that person outside of dogs, then don't hang out with them inside of dogs. that could be taken out of
Ooh,
context.
whoa.
Like,
There should be a disclaimer thing that pops up.
let's watch it. G will probably innocently crop that one and put that up as a reel, and I'll have to send a message. G, take that down. It could be taken out of context.
Oh, that was a good one. Oh man. So bring actually, Katie, you brought he's only drinking coffee, folks.
It's coffee,
Uh,
still sober.
oh man. So you actually so I don't know if you know we've never talked about this, but I never talk dogs with people. Like I've never like the moment and then like especially well, I mean it depends. Like if you're like clients obviously stuff like that within the business, people that I have to talk dogs about, or if it just comes up in natural conversation, I'll do that. But I'll purposely just not talk about dogs or avoid the conversation about dogs if I'm having conversation with like for example, like you and I, unless it comes up naturally, we don't really ever really
We
talk
don't
about
ever
dogs.
talk about dogs. We never talk
Yeah,
about dogs.
yeah, like never happens. Like another good friend of ours, a mutual friend is Matt Wilson. Me and Matt, we never really talk about dogs. I mean, we talk about like funny stories, like his we'll send like videos of like one of my guys getting nuked or something like, or one of my dogs, going through this, like just funny stuff like that, but nothing in particular to dogs. And it's just one of those things because like if like you said, it's like that's the only thing we have in common, like it's gonna be really boring, like that's just gonna be what's gonna happen. And then a lot of the times the practicing of how you practice with dogs are different. So it can kind of become, weird. But like that's why like I never really talk dogs, especially if I'm like if this is like okay, like we're gonna be buddies or friends or whatever it may be, like, there has to be something more than that, in order to kind of have a relationship because the rest of my life is essentially training dogs, talking to clients about dogs, like with my friends, like I don't even talk about dogs. I just want to talk to my friends about normal life stuff and not just have that. Because if you just have that one common denominator, it's just gonna get. And then like you said too, you don't know who could be, you know, it could be a fishy relationship too, especially when it's just purely about that, and especially in the industry or when you're professional at it.
It's, I think now that takes us to what is a friend? And, I'll be, shit, I think I'll be 46 this year. I'm getting to the point, dude, where I got to like do math to figure out how old I am. I'm
Yeah.
not 70 years old, though, contrary to what some people say. Um, I'm at a point where I take that word really seriously and probably, I mean, more seriously than some, and maybe even more seriously than I need to. But it's maybe for a lack of alternative words, like I have a lot of acquaintances. And that's how I look at it. I have alliances with people. Doesn't mean we're friends. We have some type of overlap that has built the foundation of some type of an alliance. And the terms of that alliance don't necessarily have to involve the intimacy of friendship. And I don't use that word lightly. And the older I get, like, dude, the amount of people I have just quietly cut out of my life as I identified the offset in the alliance, the offset in the friendship. And I started to say, you know what? That actually, I'm not with that anymore. And I've had this happen numerous times where, you have a group of friends, associates, and everyone knows each other. And I've one by one kind of like let it go with certain members of the group. And then I've had, a certain person who's a constant there go, oh, well, you got a problem with so and so? You don't talk to them anymore? I'm like, actually, no. I have zero problem with them. I wish them no ill will. If I see them, I'll shake their hand, ask them how they're doing. It isn't a negative thing. It's just the path that they're on, the offset is so significant that and my path is so the other direction. I just don't care to, I don't care to maintain that. I don't care to maintain that alliance anymore. Like it needs to just, I respect the expiration date. another Justin Garcia vernacular he taught me. I just it's time to go. It doesn't mean I wish you bad. It doesn't mean I have a problem with you. It doesn't mean there's beef. It just means, hey, you're doing your thing, and I'm not with that thing. And it doesn't hurt me, doesn't hurt anybody else. So more power to you. But that's not what I'm about. And I think a lot of people get hung up, and you go to a seminar, you go to a trial, you meet somebody, you got dogs in common, you shake hands, you like each other's posts on Facebook, Instagram, and then 6 months later you're complaining about how they burned you. And it's like, but were they really your friend?
Yeah.
Like, what made them your friend?
What was the definition, defining moment that would make that person your friend? Or
Do you know their kids' names? Do they know your kid's name? Do they know your weaknesses? Or do they address your weaknesses and help you become stronger? Like, do you share any type of challenge that you've overcome together? Like what the what?
yeah.
Um, and to me, friendship is like you said, you and I, we rarely talk dogs. However, we have talked dogs, and when we do, it's different. It's fun. It's fulfilling. Like I, if we haven't done it in a while, but like we've had conversations where I've just been enthralled with asking you questions about what you do with a dog. Or, you and
Yeah.
I've talked about Elmo a couple times because he's a freaking weirdo. Like when I do talk to a friend like you that I respect in the dog world and outside of the dog world, like it's a different type of conversation.
Yeah.
It's very fulfilling. It's I'm looking to learn at that point because I want to hear what you do that's different, or let me share this thought with you and tell me what you think, and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's a different, I mean, like it's just a different conversation because it's like again, it's like more so like on like that friend level, or like, just having like because once you build like for example, like with my friends, right, like the people that I would consider friends, I don't have too many. Where most people think I do, but I think a lot of it is one, when we talk about dogs, like you and I, it's because we have like a built respect for each other, whether it be by the work stuff we're going on or the relationship that we built together with our friendship, right? So like that's one of the reasons why like I think like those conversations are always like, they're fun, they're fulfilling. We can take away because of that, mutual respect or understanding of, because like when we talk about like like beginning of this, how's your day going? Like, oh crap, we've done all this leading up to it. So knowing where the time displacement comes, how you have time to do this, stuff like that, it builds to those things. And like, I think like the what you're saying, like the term friend, I feel like the definition of it, well, I mean, the definition of everything is individual and perspective mostly, right? For per person. But the definition of like a friend for some people, like some people have a bunch of friends, but they're not really friends, right? And then, let's even go do a little bit deeper into it, because we mainly when we on Drinks and Dogs, we've been on this like kick of like helping people with like their businesses and learn and like go from there. And I think I like the term you said, expiration date. Is it like in the beginning when I first started training dogs, like professionally, taking money for it, I had a larger group of friends, or, quote unquote friends. As I progressed through my journey of running a business, becoming a better dog trainer, doing all these things, that a lot of expiration dates came up, came up, and they came up abruptly and quickly. Whether it was something to where there was no, you said there's no beef, no problem. You kind of just go your separate ways, and it wasn't even in this. It's not even in the sense of like, oh, you're doing this and it doesn't really mesh well with what I'm doing, or like our thoughts are the same. It's just when you start a business, and you're not even just a business where it's like a business where you're purchasing product or selling a product or any of those things, a business that's an actual craft, like where you have to invest time not only on the actual business part of it, but the craft aspect of your business, like training, working with dogs, you're working with live animals. Your life becomes consumed differently, right? Like your life is consumed with work, because now it's not only you're managing the business, but you're managing the craft and you're getting better at it, and you're taking care of animals and everything. So your responsibilities become a little bit different as you grow in business. And one of the things I've always looked at as like, for friends, or when, where, friendships are being made, is like, is this going to be like is this another weight to carry? Or is this something that's going to absorb bandwidth? Or is this, someone that I can actually talk and like it can be a fulfilling conversation, it can be a fun conversation. It can be something where there's no weight displacement, there's no addition to the the table, not in addition to the table, but addition to the weight that you're already, carrying. And to me, like that's a big thing, right? Like, is this going to be a distraction? Is this going to be something to where like, someone's going to be, I don't want to say like, more of a weight than an additive, like as like a fun relieving friend type of a thing. And is this person going to absorb bandwidth? Because in the beginning, I think like in the beginning when you're going through a business, when you're doing your business, your main, and even now, like a lot of my day to day, my work is it's highly focused. So I have like zero time for like any additional like meaningless conversations or someone to throw more stuff on me. Like it's just not there. Like, and I wouldn't do that to anybody else either. So like, for me, like my definition of a friend is somewhere like, oh, okay, it's a fun conversation. It doesn't feel like it's work. I don't need another job. Like, all the friendships and any relationship really, it's quote unquote work because you have to like, be attentive to certain things and empathetic, all those other stuff like that. But like it's something that's a different feeling to it than someone who's just going to be laborious in conversation and is always like either the pity party or demanding of energy. Whereas like, I talk to you, now I think we text a little more now, but like, we'll have like a cool 5-10 minute conversation before, 5 or 10 minutes after. All right, brother, have a great week. Check in here and there, and then see you, and then see you next week. And that's a it's a friend, it's a friendship, and we talk and do those things, but we're not like up each other's butt all the time like some people are. And like that's kind of what happened when as I was growing in this industry. Is like, dude, I had to kind of like you know punch some expiration tickets just because like my focus is here. And I think that's something that most new dog trainers, new business owners coming into the coming into like the world of running and owning a dog training business will start to see too. Because I get a lot of questions about that. It's like, well, I started my company and now like I don't know, my friend group's not, as big as it was, or all those other things. Like, can't tell. Like, the common thing is like my friends always tell me I need balance. And like, in my life, I'm like, no, you need balance once you get to the part where you want to go. Like, that's fine. I was like, but if they're just saying you need balance is because you're not showing them attention, that's selfishly them saying that, not saying you need balance in your life. They're just saying they probably miss you or whatever, and they want you to be like around more. But if you're out there trying to establish your own stuff and get there, you need to pick your friends wisely, because you can picking the wrong friends, you can either never accomplish the goals that you're setting out to do, or be drastically delayed in that thing too. So I think that's an important, I guess, topic or segue into that.
Yeah. Well, a good friend will recognize where you're at, no matter where that is. So when you need space, they'll recognize that you need that space and they won't get in the way of it. If you need a foot in the ass,
Yep.
they're there to give it. And I think that's an important component missing from a lot of people's relationships that they have with others is, you know, a friend doesn't watch you screw up and cheer you on while you do it. And people get that confused with support,
Yeah.
right? Like, I can support you, doesn't mean I agree with you. I'm going to tell you, if I think you're making a mistake, if I think you're effing up, I'm going to tell you, hey, man, I think that's a mistake. I think you're dropping the ball right there. Now, I'll support you in helping you fix it. I'll support you everywhere else. But like, it's my job to tell you you're screwing up. And if you have friends, air quotes, who never tell you when you're screwing up, you don't have friends, because there's no way you're not screwing up somewhere. Like,
Yep.
who's perfect? Who's perfect? And I realize, I'm currently surrounded by individuals who are very intense, and like I don't get any slack. None. If I misstep, the first people to let me know I misstepped are my friends. It's also why I'm kind of weird about the word brother. And
Oh,
I realize culturally, a lot of people use that word, and I don't have a problem if people use it with me. Just don't get pissed off and butthurt if I don't use it back. And I get it, I maybe take it more seriously than others. It is what it is. But like if I use that word with you, it means something because I'm an only child, didn't grow up with very many friends, didn't grow up with very many, didn't have any genetic siblings. So for me, like if I use that word, it's a big deal. I don't just throw it around willy-nilly. And to the point where, there are some people in my life, I count on like one hand and only like two fingers, who I'll use that word and like I mean it. Like I mean it. Like they're my brother.
yeah,
It's like that's as closest I've ever had. And that's a level of friendship that is like it's as high as it goes. And because I've had the privilege of that experience and having relationships with other men that is that powerful, it sets the bar really high. And what ends up happening is when you get a couple really good, truly functional relationships in your life like that, you start looking at all the other relationships you got around, and it makes it a lot easier to kind of let those go because the bar is so high that you start kind of like, why would I hang out with you?
yeah.
Like, wow, like no, we got too much offset. Like you don't ever call me out. You just yes me to death, or you always put me down and you never build me like because it's a balance. It's like, it's one thing to call people out on their screw ups. It's another to be a hater and like be
Yeah.
jealous and be spiteful and hide it in the friendship. And it's like, nah, man, you actually don't respect me. You're actually throwing salt right now. You're throwing salt. And the minute you throw salt at me, it's you're not going to hit me in the face with it again. You can hit me in the back of the head with it because I'm going to turn and walk away. And then pretty soon you'll be just throwing salt at a shadow. Ooh, throwing salt at the shadow. I think that could be something, right? Like, because I'm just not going to be there.
Yeah.
I don't need that in my life.
I think like that's something too. I mean, I think like the no, I don't know. I hate using that term, but just like the balance in a friendship, right? Like understanding, like you said, someone who's not always gonna yes you to death and like constantly be like, quote unquote, because they might be thinking they're doing they might be thinking they're doing what's best, right? They might be thinking like, oh, I'm being supportive, this stuff like that, and they could just be like reinforcing negative behavior. They could be doing that, but they have the best intentions. Yeah, but I've seen this a lot too. In the other, like I've seen this like in my own personal life, is that where you see people who are like for example, like with the position that I'm in or I've been in for a little bit, is you kind of become like the boss or like I hate like like the leader of the thing.
I
So
know where
people
you're
always
going with this.
right. So like people always kind of feel like they have to either like they got to be the one that has to come in and just point out some form of negative thing or whatever it may be, but there's no real backing or understanding as to what is going on, right? Because they don't live in that world that you live in, right? So they don't understand what your perspective is, what's going on, and they can start trying to chip away. Well, like I can do this. I have time to check in with them. This, with my personal like this. I have this. I'm like, okay, and then I go ahead and I lay it out. Like, well, this is what my every single day looks like. This is why I can't do those things. But they always have to like they have to be that person that wants to be like, I'm the one that, has to kind of put my, say something to you or like level you out. Like there's always, you know what I'm saying? Like there's always that one person or a couple of them that have to like they always have to feel like they're the ones that are offsetting everyone else kind of doing like the yes man work or because I mean I've been around people people that have been mentors of mine where they're pretty straightforward. Their heads in the right space. They're doing all the they're doing things. They're busy. Are there certain elements in their life that may be lacking at that one moment? Yeah, but I mean like they're heading towards a certain goal, and there's no I never really felt the need to be like, hey man, you need to start doing this, just to say like, hey, you need to start doing this, just to say it, like, to to offset whatever praise they may be getting elsewhere. But then you get like, certain people that come into your life that have, for some reason, have to either try to always take you down a notch or two, or put input into something they know nothing really about. And like that's a whole bunch of other expiration
Yeah.
dates that had to get punched as well.
Well, what happened, I think another component of that is there's like this need. How do I articulate this? It's like there's a certain level of rapport that you have to say certain types of things in a functional way. And sometimes people will try to skip the work that comes into building that rapport, and they just jump over the rapport building part, and they say things to demonstrate a perspective of familiarity. That's one. Like, well, ball breaking is an example of that. You know, I I break balls with my friends? Yeah, I do. Do I break balls with people that I'm not there yet with? No, I don't. But there are plenty of people who will throw a jab at you. And it's not because they're being mean. What they're trying, they know that ball breaking means that you're familiar. It means that you have intimacy. So they're trying to achieve that level of intimacy with the ball breaking. They're putting the cart in front of the horse.
Yeah,
Or and the context you gave, criticism, pretty much. That's kind of like to summarize what you're talking about, like a criticism, a constructive criticism. Is it really constructive though, or are you just trying to look like? Are you trying to feel like we have a connection that is so strong that you can be critical?
yeah.
Because I don't think we do. I don't think we've been through that rapport building process. I don't think you've earned the right to break my balls. I don't think you've earned the right in our relationship to express that. And those people will stand out because that's typically all they do. There is no balance. They don't
Yeah,
say yes when they need to say yes. They don't pat you on the back when maybe you deserve one. There's no balance. They're defining the relationship through this criticism or teasing and joking, and as men, that is something that men do, and you know, in varying degrees based on the relationship. I mean, do I tease some of my friends? Yeah, but that's not all there is. And I've been around guys who, like, that's all they know how to communicate is
yeah,
just through ball breaking. And I'm like, I get it, but at that point, we're not going to be that close because there's so much more to a relationship than that. I mean, probably my closest friend on the earth, the OG, you know what I'm talking about.
yeah.
You know, when we're together, I mean, is there some teasing? Oh yeah, there is. But there's also immense amounts of accountability. There's immense amounts of constructive criticism, and there's a lot of intimacy there too, and there's affection, and there's like support, and there's caring, and there's love. Like it's a functional, balanced relationship. Go figure, balanced.
Balance.
um oh no, we're almost talking about dog training for a second, but like in that relationship, all the components are being fulfilled in a functional way. And yeah, there's going to be people who just want to take a shot at you to look like they can or to feel like they can. When in reality, it's like you haven't paid your dues in this relationship yet, buddy. Like you're not there. And there's a difference between telling someone, "Hey, you should do this differently," or there's a difference between taking someone you care about aside and be like, "Hey, man, this is looking like this. I'm concerned for you. Just think about it." Or, "Hey, did you think this through?" Or,
Yeah, ask the
there's
question.
yeah, there's ways you can deliver that information based on the nature of that particular relationship where it can be constructive and it can be valuable. But I think people as a whole now are just becoming increasingly dysfunctional with their interpersonal relationships in general. So, like,
Yeah, that's so. Let's say, well, with that, right? So going into, we talked about friends. We kind of dabbled into like the business aspect and people kind of having balanced relationships with their friends. What go so kind of going off what I was saying and like even like what you're saying there. for a new dog trainer, right? Because I know you're in this space now where you're helping new dog trainers and you're developing all of that. For a new dog trainer, like I'll tell you what my advice typically is when people ask me about like their friendships and what they should do about their relationships, and their relationships are struggling because of the new business and all the other stuff that they're doing and the new responsibilities, and they're not dedicating time to that. So kind of the first thing I always like ask them is like, well, was there already kind of an issue in these relationships? Like, what's like, was there already kind of a problem happening now, and this is just magnifying those issues? Because it could just be like, what the straw that broke the camel's back type of a thing. Um, but then the other thing, like, and this is kind of like more of the cold side of me, is kind of like, dude, like, well, shoot, man, like, what do you want? Like, do you want this business? Do you want to be successful in this business? Because there's going to be a part, and it's not the whole thing. People can see, how I live my life pretty transparent through social media, where things are gonna suffer in the beginning when you're building your business, when you're building, your skill, your craft. You're going to People are gonna be kind of not I want to say necessarily pushed away, but they're gonna kind of get left alone because you're gonna be so focused over there. But going to the point that you said too is that a good friend will know when to give you that time and understand what you're doing and not think selfishly in the sense of like, oh, they're not being friends with me because of all this other thing, putting whatever they're going to put into their brain, instead of actually thinking like, oh, they're just out there hustling, building their business, doing these things. A good friend should have that ability, right? Like I've like I said, I have like a handful of friends that if I don't call them and if I don't text them, they know it's not because I'm not like we're not friends. They just know it's like you said this to me before, like, oh, Mike just doing Mike things, like just doing my own thing in that sense. So I'll let them know that too, because especially like nowadays when people who want to get into dog training in this business, and you see all these different elements that are part of business, a lot of it's busy. It can be a tough industry to one, not necessarily get into. It's easy to get into, but it's becoming increasingly harder to stay into and stay relevant and still continuously build and build a company to where, like you've stressed this before, to where you're not basically doing everything by yourself. You're not doing 7 days a week, like all these other things. It takes a while to get to the point to where you're not doing everything like I am now with my company. Not at the point where like I'm not scraping kennels 7 days a week, where I'm not taking time with my family, not taking time with my significant other when I can have phone calls or conversations with my friends at those given times. But in the beginning, it wasn't like that for me. In the beginning, it was. I mean, it still is throttled. I can't BS anybody on this one. It is still pretty much pedal to the floor and kind of waving as I pass by as I pass by doing certain things or make my laps.
We know.
But I mean, yeah, I can't mess. I kind of whatever fluff that one up. It's pretty straightforward as to who I am. But as someone who's coming into the industry or coming into any industry, really, I would, when it comes to the perspective of having a friend or having friends, I think it's a good way of weeding out a lot of the fake relationships, because your core group is it's going to be there. And another thing too, since we are becoming more culturally obsessed with followers, likes, interactions with people through social media, you don't need a lot of friends. You don't really, I mean, like, I think like, obviously having a smaller group is a little bit easier, but I think the quality in relationships is better when you have smaller groups of friends as well. It is, you do have a little more time to talk to them, interact with them, but you don't need tons of friends, contrary to what social media has made us all think. With the more followers and likes we get and comments we get, it makes us more valuable or whatever, whatever reason it may be. But I think in real life, I've come to the conclusion, over, going through the ups and downs, all that stuff, is that, it's almost less. I mean, it is less is more for me, less people to, I guess, not having giant circles, having smaller circles, or the people, or what I call my pack, is more important than focusing on those relationships versus like trying to appease everybody and, sacrifice the stuff, my goals, in order to appease those people. Whereas if I just stick going forward, those people are going to come around. So I always like telling all my people we help with that stuff is that, like, hey, don't focus so much on that friendship stuff. You know, have the group that you have, build your company, keep doing that and focus on that stuff. And, you know, everything will kind of essentially fall into line. And the ones that are meant to stay around will stay around. They'll understand that you're doing something.
I don't know how you can functionally maintain tons of friendships,
Yeah,
because I know the friendships I have, they require an emotional investment. Never mind a time investment. They require an emotional investment. Like you're because to me, if you're a friend, like you care about each other. Like there's care there. I care if you're doing okay. I care if you're not doing okay. And that is an emotional investment. And in order to do it properly, I mean, how the heck do you do that with tons of people? And it isn't about
yeah,
how often, I mean, honestly, shit. I think about it. Like none of my closest friends live within an hour of me.
shoot,
Like all of my close friendships are remote at this point. And I see them when I can. I talk to them when I can. And that's in and of itself a bit of a struggle to maintain those. And it's like, that's when you send those texts or you call, hey, just checking in, how are you? And that's sometimes all it has to be. But like to have tons, like if you think you have tons of friends, then that's where we come back to, like, let's redefine what the word friend means. Maybe it means something different to you. I got a lot of people in the dog world in particular that I'm pretty damn cool with. I can call them up right now and say, hey, what's going on? That doesn't mean we're friends though. Just means we're really cool. We have some type of an alliance. Maybe we're building a friendship. Maybe we're going through that process of, we're cool. We help each other out with this or that, but are they like my friend? And it's not because I don't want to be their friend. Maybe it's just we haven't had the time
yeah,
to invest in building that, because I think it's something that needs to be built. We talk about, a big component of that is trust. We haven't used that word really in this conversation. Well, to
yeah,
me, trust is a part of friendship. And I know when I'm teaching dog owners about dogs and trust doesn't come from affection. Trust comes from moments of challenge, moments of difficulty, whatever that moment might be, and coming through it on the other side together. That's where trust is built. And trust is a singular component of a friendship. And that takes work. You got to go through some stuff. Maybe that means you have to share, you have to be vulnerable for a moment in whatever context. And then when that person demonstrates that they haven't taken advantage of that vulnerability, trust starts to get built. Or you were uncomfortable with something, they told you to do this, you didn't want to do this because it made you really uncomfortable, but you said screw it and you did it, and then it came out the way they told you. Now we've built trust, because like I was uncomfortable, but I did what you said and I followed you and we came out on the other side better because of it. Trust has been built incrementally. And I think trust is a huge part of that. And if you haven't gone through something with somebody, and hey, this applies to romantic relationships too.
yeah.
I
No,
mean,
100%.
everything's great in the honeymoon phase when all you're doing is screwing and partying. Like screwing and partying is like how many relationships are built on that. But it's like, do you know what that person's like when they go through family problems? Do you know what that person's like when the sun isn't shining? Do you know what that person is like when they're under pressure? And then many times people don't, and then they get into various forms of commitment, and then that stuff happens, and they're like, whoa, that person can't handle stress. Or whoa, I don't like how they process that information. Oh boy, now what? Well, that applies to romantic relationships. There's been many platonic, friendships I've had, where might have been cool with someone. I might have almost thought we were friends for a while. And then I saw the way they handled a stressful situation. And I know one friendship in particular. I mean, I pretty much ended it and this was someone we were close for years. And that individual went, went through some self-induced drama that they brought on themselves, and I was there to help them through that. And when the pressure got really hard, I saw them turn on other people that were in their circle
Uh,
and how quickly they were willing to throw people under the bus. And I was like, now they weren't doing it to me. They were doing it to other people though. And I said, whoa, like, I mean, I've known you for years, but I've never seen that. Why? Because I never saw them under that kind of pressure. And when I
yeah,
saw how they folded under immense pressure, I said, well, today you screwed those guys. Tomorrow it could be me. By, by
yeah.
distance, started putting the distance in. Like how people treat others is how they might treat you one day if the pressure is strong enough. And that's a big part of trust, and that's a big part of friendships. And how can you know if you've never seen that? How deep can that friendship be if you've never seen how they handle that type of pressure?
It's very true. And that's why I let all my friends see. Katie, what we'll do in case like we ever get like, we have people that we have to vet through the friendship thing is just like we just have to have them shadow us for like a street league event, and then they can see like everybody just like,
That
hey,
they
you
could see pressure.
like
Oh,
if you're part of the street league team and you want to vet a friend, bring them to the logistics sides of organizing a street league event.
oh my God. I remember yeah, it was last event, right? Met a whole bunch of new people. It was really, it's a street league event. It's freaking awesome. It's fun. Um, but I was very conscious because some of these individuals, especially those who were through the media tent, that I didn't know previously, had no rapport with, you know, I had to be very deliberate about letting people know, listen, when I'm not on camera or when I'm not mic'd up, don't be offended if I don't talk to you, or don't be offended if I'm given one word answers. Like, you do realize my job is to talk for 8 freaking hours nonstop. So like when I'm not on mic, I don't want to talk. Like, and I'm a chatty mofo. Anyone who knows me knows like
Yeah.
when I'm working an event, I I can't talk. Like I need to sit for 10 minutes and not talk. So I had to tell some folks that I was just meeting and I thought they were cool. It's like, hey, don't be offended. But got a lot of pressure here, and I might be a little bit quiet for a little bit. I'll get with you later, I promise. But like, leave me alone for a little bit. Yeah,
That's
street
why
league event will weed them out.
that's why I would go run and hide in the trailer for like 5 minutes. Dude, awesome, man. Well, shoot, freaking, we got to wrap this one up. All right, brother. So, episode 38.
38.
Where so I know I want to bring this up again. Again, I know are we almost complete in this mentorship program, this thing you're doing with the
No, I'm still working one-on-one. All right. So the
okay, one on one.
long-term goal is to create an actual like hive, a hub, a group coaching program for dog trainers to help them out with all these different aspects. Um, it's going to be a while. So in the meantime, what that means is like, actually, now's the time to get with me,
Yeah.
simply because you're going to get one-on-one attention, because I won't do anything group related. I won't build courses. I won't build programs until I have worked extensively with people one-on-one, because that's where you learn. That's where you build your teaching on these content areas. So right now is the time to get with me. If you're a trainer and if you're new and you want to make sure you don't build all these bad habits and you want to create a functional business, boom, get with me. If you're old and salty and you're just tired of being salty, you could benefit too, because we're going to change some things.
Yep.
Um, Little tweaks have big results. So definitely don't hesitate to reach out to me. Um, and we'll see what we can do for you as in terms of dog training. And the way to get in touch with me, as always, the best, easiest way is Instagram. If you're on Instagram, at KD Matthews at 1T. You can also hit me up through my website contact page, Socratic Canine. Canine is spelled out. I don't do the K in the 9.
So I was gonna make a joke about, do the K and the nine, the dogs that do all the bites. Right. It's like I forgot someone asked me that. They're like, why'd you spell it out? You know, canine. And I was like, oh, I was like trying to, I think I was just trying to be a smart ass. I was like, oh, because my dog doesn't wear tactical equipment. They don't do buy it. So they must, they must have caught me like before coffee or just like when I was just so mentally just drained. I had to just say a smart ass remark. But, but anyways, good talking to you as always, brother. And a huge shout out to our sponsor, Ray Allen Manufacturing, rayallen.com/K9SL. Make sure you use the Primal 10 code for a discount. They have they have everything you need for dog training. There's a lot of different stuff going I mean, beyond dog training. I mean, there's people stuff on there,
They
dog
have
stuff.
everything. Pet dog stuff
Yeah.
too. Got it. I always like to interrupt you there and say it's not just working dog stuff.
Yep.
Like if you got a dog, they got stuff for you.
That's 100% perfectly said on there. And again, guys, if you guys can, if you guys like the podcast, make sure you guys are sharing this with your friends. Comment with some, we're looking at the comments as well, to make sure that we can address certain topics you guys may have or any questions you guys may have. We want to engage with you guys on YouTube as well with that. You can always catch us on wherever you get your podcast from. Spotify and Apple podcasts seem to be the major ones right now. We're also on RSS and a few others too. So make sure you guys check that out. But yeah, brother, you have a good day.
You too, man. Thank you. Good
And
stuff
thank
today.
you all. Yeah.